My name is Susan Connolly, and I was born and grew up in Drogheda, County Louth, and I still live there. I have been writing and publishing poetry for over 40 years. I have 3 collections of poetry. I like to spend as much time as possible out of doors, and for that reason, my work is informed by the landscape around Drogheda and by some of the people around Drogheda. So I've written about Mornington, Baltray, the passage tombs of Knowth, Douth and Newgrange, and I've written about the poet Francis Ledwidge from Slane, and about the high crosses at Monaster Boys. So I'm going to begin with a poem called Woman in a Black Hat. And this poem I wrote for my friend Alison. Alison wore a distinctive black hat and a long black coat, and she stood out from the crowd as she walked along West Street, Drogheda. The first half of the poem, it's in 2 parts. The first part is memories, is stories that she told me about her life. And the second part is imaginary. And Alison died in 2013. Woman in a Black Hat. One night, she dreamed that a ghostly shape stood like a cold breeze at her bed and told her in a rasping voice about a part of her life she doesn't remember. Was it lying? Was it telling the truth? Could it really know? Every time she thought about it, a shiver rippled through her body. One day, she cycled out to the country. After a while, she stopped, climbed off her bike, and stood looking quietly at the fields. Not used to such silence surrounding her, she felt it like an arm reaching right into her own silence, agitating her depths. Mostly, she prefers to put on her black hat in the afternoon and head for town. Sitting by herself in the Moorland Cafe, happy in the company of strangers, their bright butterflies of conversation drift near her, distracting her from the emptiness felt so often at this time of day. She hears outside her window the pawing of things that need no sleep, moonlight and creaking branches. And she understands what it's like to be like these, to be more air and fire than earth. So, for a while, she's restless, wide awake, younger than a child could ever be. When she's awake, she has the energy of elemental things, moonlight and creaking branches. But when she sleeps and her thoughts flow freely, she sleeps a deep human sleep. So the next poem I'm going to read is called Francis Ledwidge, and it's from this book which is called The Orchard Keeper, and The Orchard Keeper is a sequence of 6 poems about Francis Ledwidge, and two people who he was close to, his friend Matty Maguna and his girlfriend Ellie Vaughy. So I'm going to read two poems from this sequence, and the first one is called Francis Ledwidge, and it is set in the cherry orchard in Donaghmore near Navan, and this orchard belonged to the Maguna family. Francis Ledwidge. A 5-acre garden, apples, cherries, Sunday crowds at ease, children laughing, blackbirds sleeping, cherry drunk. Matty's fiddle calms you, your thoughts read at a glance. You walk the tangled roads round Slane, dreaming of Ellie. Homesick in Gallipoli, home rivers wonder where you are. Killed by shrapnel at Ypres. Empty roads are grieving. Matty's grave at Donaghmore, Ellie's on the hill of Slane. At Rossnaree I saw you, sleeping by the Boyne. So the other poem in that sequence is set in the Maguna cherry orchard, and Matty Maguna and Francis Ledwidge were close friends, and they liked to walk all around Slane together. They walked and cycled between the Maguna cottage in Donaghmore and the Ledwidge cottage in Slane. Matty Maguna was a musician and an amateur astronomer, and he was very well read, and he helped Francis Ledwidge a lot. He listened to his poetry and he advised him about his poetry. So this poem is set in the present, but it quickly goes back 100 years or more to 1912, to a time when these young men were close friends and spending a lot of time together, and before Ledwidge joined the British Army to fight in the First World War. Matty Maguna's cottage, Donaghmore, Navan. Late September, the smell of ripe apples filling this overgrown orchard where 6 horses graze near moss-covered cherry trees. I slip into another century where you, Matty Maguna, sit talking for hours with Frank. Or nature noting by the Boyne at Swinnerton. You return home at bedtime when Frank relaxes on his favourite seat near the fire, and you describe stars and spiders, then listen closely to his poems all night in the warm kitchen. I see you thoughtful in your doorway, your rusty bicycle in a nearby ditch, reading the last letter Frank wrote you before leaving for the war. How is the violin? Every time you play the Blackbird, think on me. I love that tune, and snatches of it sing in my memory. He carried that tune across Europe until at Buzzing near Ypres he died. Later, when you played the Blackbird, You remembered Francis Ledwidge calling to your door with a poem. The two of you deep in talk, both still safe from the harm brought by war. So the last poem I'm going to read is called The Path. And the path is, in this case, is the journey of one's life. The path. If I were a child again, if I could see ahead, I might see someone who looks like me, who would like to talk with me. She'd tell me not to worry. From where she is, she can see my life will be all right. A clear path ahead, she sees. Days and nights when I feel safe, lonely, reckless. My life has to be exactly as it is, so that she can find her way back, step by step, to talk with me.